Donald Trump is effectively starting a ground invasion of Iran with troops on the ground, but in a hybrid way. US President Donald Trump spoke on the phone with both leaders of the Iranian Kurds, Barzani and Talabani. It was to Iraqi Kurdistan that certain groups of armed Kurds from Syria, who did not agree with the agreement with the new authorities, could have relocated. Both the Syrian and Iraqi Kurds are armed, trained, and definitely have combat experience. Recently, Israeli and American strikes have been carried out with particular intensity, specifically against border military facilities and repressive organs of the Ayatollah regime in Iranian Kurdistan. Essentially, this is the very preparation for a ground operation that Donald Trump mentioned the other day, by the Kurdish ground forces with air support from the current coalition. Moreover, it suddenly becomes known that the Kurds have been preparing for a ground invasion for several months. But let's discuss Donald Trump's cunning plan in more detail. My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and leave any comment you wish under this video so that as many viewers as possible can see it. Subscribe to my Telegram channel Pecci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as soon as it comes in. So, at least two outlets, CNN and Reuters, citing their sources, are reporting that the US Central Intelligence Agency is working on arming Kurdish forces to spark a popular uprising in Iran. According to Reuters' sources, the Trump administration held active talks with Iranian opposition groups and Kurdish leaders in Iraq about providing them with military support if they start a war to overthrow the Ayatollah regime in Tehran. Iranian Kurdish armed groups number thousands of fighters operating along the Iran-Iraq border, mainly in Iraqi Kurdistan. Since the start of the current war phase, several groups have issued a public statement, hinting at imminent actions and calling on Iranian armed forces, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, to desert and join their side. By the way, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran isn't striking Iraq for no reason. IRGC militants are striking specifically at Kurdish groups, and on Tuesday they announced that they had shelled Kurdish forces. And as it became known today, CIA support for Iranian Kurdish groups began several months before the war. This was stated by one of the sources and a high-ranking official of the Kurdistan regional government. Also on Tuesday, US President Donald Trump spoke with the president of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, Mustafa Hijri. And now the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, I remind you, was one of the groups persecuted by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they are clearly interested in taking revenge. It is expected that in the coming days, Iranian Kurdish opposition forces will take part in a ground operation in western Iran. And now it becomes clear whom Donald Trump was addressing when he talked about Iranians taking to the streets and overthrowing the Ayatollahs. As soon as the US finishes airstrikes on Iraq, and it's obvious that now both Trump, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth are talking about saying that everyone. It was only disappointing for the correspondents. Also, on Sunday, Trump called the Kurdish leader. The leader of the Iranian Kurds discussed revenge and the war in Kurdistan. Recently, there's been an Iranian military operation in Kurdistan. Donald Trump and how the US and the Kurds could either cooperate as the mission progresses. And here it's very important to understand that any attempt at war, Iranian Kurdish groups will require the support of Iraqi Kurds to ensure the transit of weapons and to use Iraqi Kurdistan as a staging ground for future offensives. And here, one of the sources familiar with the discussions said that the idea is for the Kurdish armed forces to confront the Iranian security forces and hold them back, to make it easier for unarmed Iranians in major cities to actually go out into the streets without facing repeated mass killings like what happened during the riots in January. Another American official said that the Kurds could contribute to the spread of killings and in the region and to deplete the military resources of the Iranian regime. There are also suggestions about whether the Kurds will be able to capture and hold territories in northern Iran, thus creating a buffer zone. On Wednesday, Iraq's National Security Advisor Qasim al-Araji stated that Iraq will not allow groups to infiltrate Iraqi territory or cross the Iranian border to fight. Iraq will not allow groups to infiltrate Iraqi territory or cross the Iranian border, but let's see how it will be in practice. Answering a question about U.S. support for the Kurds, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth made the following statement today. None of our objectives are based on supporting or arming any specific forces. We are aware of what other organizations might do, but our objectives are not focused on that. But here we have to take into account that, of course, no one will openly admit it. And here I want to point out a very important thing. The Iranian people in general are unarmed. And until Iran's security services, such as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, collapse, it will be difficult for them to seize power, unless, of course, someone arms them. But if the US and Israel inflict maximum damage from the air, and the Kurds draw most of these Iranian regime security forces away, then it will be much easier for the protest to achieve its goals in Tehran itself. And here it should be noted that in recent days, Israeli forces have been striking Iranian military and police posts along the border with Iraq, partly to prepare the ground for a possible transfer of armed Kurdish forces to the northwest of Iran. And an Israeli source stated that these strikes are likely to intensify in the coming days. Let me remind you that the Kurds are an ethnic minority without an official state. Today, their population is estimated at 25 to 30 million people, most of whom live in a region spanning Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Armenia. Most Kurds are Sunni Muslims, while the Ayatollah regime in Iran is Shia. There is no doubt that the vast majority of the Kurdish people are opposed to the regime of the Islamic Republic of Iran. They consider it repressive and destabilizing and would welcome substantial American support aimed at ending its harmful influence. The CIA has a long and complicated history of cooperation with Iraqi Kurdish groups spanning decades. This referred to the period of the U.S. war in Iraq. According to two sources, the agency currently has a presence in Iraqi Kurdistan, located near the border with Iran. The U.S. also has a consulate in Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, and American and coalition forces are based there as part of the campaign against ISIS. Therefore, it is possible that Trump is indeed preparing the ground for a real ground invasion, but not by American soldiers. So, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you found this episode interesting and useful, I would appreciate any support for our channel through your donation or paid subscription using the links and details in the description of this video or via the QR code. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.